What if some of the things you call your personality aren't really who you are? What if they're behaviors you practiced so many times to protect yourself that eventually they started feeling like you? You say, "I'm just an overthinker." But maybe you learned to anticipate problems before they happened. You say, "I'm a people pleaser." Maybe there was a time when keeping everybody happy felt safer than disagreement. You say, "I don't trust anybody." Maybe trust became expensive. You say, "I don't need anyone." Maybe needing somebody once hurt so badly that independence became armor, and after years of repetition, the armor starts feeling like skin. A survival strategy repeated long enough can start feeling like an identity. So here's the uncomfortable question. If survival helped build the person you are today, who gets to build the person you become next? Because you adapted for a reason. Maybe you learned to read the room before speaking, keep everybody happy, expect rejection before it happened. Over-prepare. Stay emotionally guarded. Chase reassurance. Avoid confrontation. Never ask for help. And some of those behaviors may have genuinely helped you through difficult periods of your life. So this isn't about attacking the person you became. It's about asking whether you're still using an old solution for a danger that may no longer exist. Your brain learns. Your nervous system learns. Your subconscious learns. When a behavior repeatedly reduces uncertainty, fear, or emotional discomfort, that behavior can become easier to repeat. Eventually, you don't even consciously decide to do it. Something happens and the response begins. But here's the problem. A coping strategy can save you in one chapter and imprison you in the next. Hyper-independence may once have protected you from disappointment. Now it prevents intimacy. People-pleasing may once have helped you preserve connection. Now it destroys your boundaries. Avoidance may once have reduced anxiety. Now it keeps your world small. Constantly monitoring another person's mood may once have helped you anticipate conflict. Now you call it overthinking. And the question isn't whether that older version of you was wrong. The question is, does that version still deserve control of your future? Because every time the old pattern activates, you rehearse it again. You get anxious. You check the phone. You feel rejected. You chase. You feel lonely. You go back. You fear conflict. You stay silent. You feel overwhelmed. You avoid. You feel inadequate. You look outside yourself for validation. And every repetition becomes another piece of evidence. This is what we do when we're afraid. This is how we survive uncertainty. This is who we are. But identity isn't fixed simply because a response feels familiar. You don't become your future self by thinking differently once. You become them by repeatedly behaving differently when the old response is still available. That's where your next life is built. Not when everything is calm. Not when you're watching a motivational video. Not when you're promising yourself, starting tomorrow, everything changes. It's built in the gap. Something triggers you. The old pattern says, react, send the message, check again, apologize, run, avoid, spend, eat, scroll, shut down. Do whatever you've always done to make the discomfort disappear. But now you create a gap. You notice what's happening. You pause. You regulate. And then you choose. Maybe somebody doesn't respond to your message. The old you immediately assumes rejection, checks their social media, sends another message, starts replaying the conversation. The new response isn't pretending you don't care. It's noticing. I'm activated right now. My body wants certainty. My mind is creating a story. So you put the phone down. You breathe. You wait. You return your attention to your own life, because an emotion can deliver information without receiving authority. Fear gets a voice. It doesn't automatically get the vote. And this is where Stoicism becomes incredibly practical. The Stoics understood that much of life exists outside our control. Other people's opinions, their decisions, whether they stay, whether they leave, whether they understand us, whether they apologize, whether tomorrow unfolds exactly as we planned. But the deeper question is, what do I practice becoming in response to what happens? Stoicism isn't emotional numbness. It's not pretending rejection doesn't hurt. It's not suppressing fear. It's not becoming cold. It's practicing character while the emotion exists. Wisdom says, see reality clearly. Courage says, act despite discomfort. Temperance says, you don't have to obey every impulse. Justice says, don't abandon yourself and don't mistreat somebody else just because you're hurting. Courage isn't the absence of fear. Courage is refusing to give fear executive authority over your behavior. So let's make this practical. I want you to finish 4 sentences. Number 1. When I feel rejected, I usually don't judge the answer, just notice it. Number 2. When I'm afraid of losing someone, I usually. Number 3. When life becomes uncertain, I usually. And number 4. The person I want to become would instead look at the difference between those answers. Because that space between what you automatically do and what the person you want to become would choose is where your next identity begins. And this isn't only about relationships. What do you do when money becomes tight? What do you do when your health requires discipline? What do you do when work becomes uncomfortable? What do you do when somebody criticizes you? What do you do when you're lonely? What do you do when nobody is watching? That's where identity becomes visible. And don't make the mistake of trying to become an entirely different person overnight. Don't stand in front of the mirror and announce a new me. Create evidence. 1 boundary. 1 workout. 1 honest conversation. 1 hour of focused work. 1 night without checking their pay. 1 financial decision you know your future self needs you to make. 1 application. 1 difficult thing you stop avoiding. Then do it again, because your subconscious doesn't care about the speech you gave yourself Sunday night. It learns from what you repeatedly do Monday morning. Identity is built through evidence. Every time you respond differently, you create evidence. I can feel afraid without running. I can feel rejected without chasing. I can feel lonely without returning to something unhealthy. I can feel uncomfortable without immediately escaping. I can disappoint somebody without abandoning myself. I can make a difficult decision and survive the discomfort that follows. And slowly, the unfamiliar becomes familiar. The deliberate becomes practiced. The practiced becomes character. And character begins shaping identity. So don't hate the person you became. That version of you deserves compassion. They learned how to survive what life gave them. They developed strategies. They adapted. They got you here, but survival was never supposed to become the architect of everything that came next. You don't have to hate the old version of yourself to outgrow them. Your past may explain your patterns. It doesn't get to choose your future. Fear may speak. The old pattern may activate. Your nervous system may beg for the familiar. But you still get a choice. And your future isn't waiting somewhere 5 years from now, already finished. It's being built right now by what you repeatedly choose. So this week, don't try to change your entire life. Find one pattern. One. See it. Name the trigger. Notice the automatic response. Regulate the reaction. Then choose something different and repeat it. See the pattern. Regulate the reaction. Choose the response. Repeat it until the response becomes character, and character begins becoming identity. Every visible outcome begins with an invisible pattern. Your past may have written the first draft, but you still have the pen. That is Stoicism 2.0.